You are listening to Pharmacy IT and Me, your informatics pharmacist podcast. Hey everyone, this is Tony Gao, and welcome to another episode of Pharmacy IT and Me. As with every episode, we start off this one stating that the intended audience for this episode are newcomers to pharmacy informatics. So, last time we had an intro to change management and we talked about some strategies. Again, these are not specific to pharmacy informatics, but they are things that you would encounter as an informatics pharmacist or even a pharmacist who just works with technology. So today, let's talk about how to respond to change or respond to the reactions to change. So before talking about responding to reactions to change, we should talk about the different types of people within an organization for when change occurs. So you can have what's called change leaders, and these are normally individuals in that particular department that lead the change. Sometimes you would have someone like, a techie pharmacist be that change leader or, a computer enthusiast nurse leading a nurse change. But that's not always going to be a good thing since they aren't really reflecting your typical user. In addition, sometimes that new intern or that newly graduated pharmacist may not be a good choice because a change leader, they don't have that experience of being in a workflow yet or being in a workflow that long yet. So the change leaders should be people who have the experience of the workflow and also represent the typical user of the system. Now in a pharmacy setting, maybe it's the pharmacist who's been there for 20 years as an inpatient staff pharmacist, or maybe it's the lead technician who's worked their way up into that role since they began as a technician intern way back when. Sometimes change leaders may need to come from the outside in the form of consultants if there aren't enough people within the organization that have the right experience yet. So now you got the change leaders, but you also have the individual adopters. These can be broken down into several categories. You have the innovators and the early adopters who share similar sentiments in terms of adopting a change and just going with it. Then you got the majority adopters who are basically going to adopt because that's what they were told to do to keep their job. And you also have the late adopters, which are those who resist changing their workflows since they are very fixed in their ways. And finally, you just have the plain laggers who, they don't really want to adopt at all. And an adoption curve basically shows a bell-shaped curve where the major adopters are in the middle biggest portion. It's the majority of it. And then you have the innovators and the early adopters on one side, and then you have the late adopters and the laggers on the other side. So why is it important to understand the type of people first? Well, the type of people are going to be typically having certain responses to change. It's important that you try to anticipate the types of responses you would get when implementing a new system and prepare yourself with how you would react to their reactions to change. Anticipating this may seem like common sense, but there's many times when the project is so focused on meeting go-live deadlines that the anticipation of user responses is actually forgotten. Having a plan in place can prevent some disastrous go-lives. Some of the examples of reactions that you may get from people are as follows. So you can get people who say they're going to leave. They don't want to deal with this. They're going to leave and quit. So what you should do with these people is you probably just want to acknowledge their help and their criticism beforehand and kind of just value it, but then let it go. Because sometimes these individuals are already on their way out, and this implementation was just that little extra push to push them to quit. So you may not be able to get them to turn back on your side. Now, if you have people who are actively pushing back on the change for these individuals, you can take all their complaints and figure out how to spin it into suggestions and constructive criticism to improve the system and then show that, you're listening to them. And then for people who are not for or not against the change, they're basically apathetic. But if you start to involve them, you might swing them into accepting the change and prevent them from jumping onto the other side. For people who accept the modification, but they're not really enthusiastic, these people should be kept engaged as well and keep them from turning the other way. And then you got those who are supporters of change. These are your fans. You need to acknowledge that, their help is valuable, their support is valuable, and show appreciation to keep them on your side. So hopefully this helps with understanding the responses portion of change. And next time we revisit the education episodes, we'll talk about tactics that can be done in change management, specifically those that are related to the cycle of unfreezing, implementing change, and refreezing users to a new state. Alright, if you guys like this episode, you can subscribe and rate us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any of your other favorite podcasting services. You can also follow us on social media on Twitter or Facebook at PharmacyITme, or Instagram at Pharmacy Informatics, or by emailing me at tony@pharmacyitme.com. And I also wanted to plug a great networking opportunity called Pharmacist Connect. If you are familiar with Microsoft Teams or Slack Workspace, think of Pharmacist Connect as a large vetted one through Slack Workspaces. I've met some great colleagues on it, and there's even an informatics space within it as well. You can find out more by visiting pharmacistconnect.com, which is PharmacistConnect.com. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of Pharmacy IT&Me. And remember, technology is the tool, patient care is the goal.